Hello and welcome. You're listening to Start Again with Shauna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Together, we will uncover your soul's truest desires. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Today, I'm going to introduce you to my dear friend, Mary. Mary helps her clients connect with their inner healer and gain confidence to stay grounded as their most authentic self with ease and joy. She is a licensed therapist here in Texas, and she has a wide range of specializations for her clients ages 4 to adult. She uses talk therapy, expressive arts therapy, play therapy, and EMDR. Since children struggle with the same complex emotions and struggles that adults do, but they don't developmentally have the ability to understand and process what's happening to them with talk and words, they communicate and process their experiences through play. And in play therapy, play is this sacred space where we hold big feelings and uncomfortable thoughts together and make new meaning for each of those clients' experiences. Mary, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, I teared up a little.
It's a beautiful description about this work that you're doing and that you're walking your clients toward their own healing. And it's so valuable, so valuable. So with that, you actually ventured out into your own most recently. And I suspect this is how you are going to begin to tell your story about how you identify as a Start Again queen. But from your words, how would you say you identify?
I mean, how don't I identify as a Start Again queen would be a simpler question to answer. Yeah, I honestly, when I thought about this, like Start Again queen idea, it's hard for me to remember a time when I wasn't starting again. I moved when I was very young from Dallas. I was 10 years old and we moved from Dallas to Saudi Arabia. And I had never moved before. I didn't know anything but my very small town. And I didn't even know there were other parts of myself to discover until I was in a new place with wildly new experiences. And so and then it just continued from there, like moving and changing schools and moving again and changing careers and changing back and then changing again and then changing again. And, relationships, friendships, and romantic relationships that shift and change. Like,
absolutely.
There's so many ways. I'm remembering there was a time, I want to say it was probably the summer between, or the Christmas of my first year of college, or the summer between high school and college. And I was talking to a friend of mine that we'd been friends since 8th grade. And I was upset about something. I don't remember what. I was really struggling. And I was like, I don't know how this is ever going to get better. And she said to me, Mary, you are the most resilient person I've ever known. And I was like, what? So not a way I saw myself at all, because I just felt like I was failing all the time. And, I started to notice ways I was resilient and identify with the version of me someone else saw. And I don't know about you. It's resilience.
It is resilience. And I don't know about you, but I feel like other people's view of me is so much kinder. And I had to teach myself how to give myself permission to see myself the same way that other people see me. And that was a big lesson for me in my own growth and healing, is to be able to learn how to be kinder to myself. Like, that's the ultimate self-love, I think.
Yeah, I had another friend who is very close to my heart say to me once, I wish you could see yourself through my eyes.
Yes.
And I was
Yes.
grateful to him for that reminder. Like,
I
you know,
say that to my children often, actually. So I think that part of your story that has always been the most interesting to me is the fact that you lived in Saudi Arabia. But when you look at your own story, what part do you think is most inspiring to other people?
I mean, this is an interesting question too, because
Yep.
when I think of like what's most inspiring and the part of your story, like it makes me like think, try to find events or situations. And I don't know that I can find those, because I think what's inspiring is every crash and burn moment, every poor decision, every wrong turn, and what came after it. And
Yes.
I think what makes, I have had reflected to me before, which is another thing. I was like, really? Because again, I just feel like I'm just struggling through my mess. I have no idea what's happening. But like, you know,
Aren't we all?
someone else said, you're a very inspiring person. And then I thought
Yeah.
about like an inspiring person. What makes me an inspiring person? And I honestly think it's just, I I share it all. I talk about it. And
Yeah.
a lot of that is honestly a function of anxiety sometimes. Like I can't, I'm like, you know, there's like, here's all this stuff. What do I do? Like, what's this mess? What do I do? Like, and so, you know, and then people hear the story and see the story. And I think I speak and use my voice a lot, which has been quite a journey. I spent much of my younger years talking myself out of using my voice.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And there were even moments in my younger years where, again, it would bubble over either because, like, I couldn't take it anymore. My tolerance for a specific thing repeated was like,
Hmm.
enough, I'm using
Yeah,
my voice.
yeah.
Or it was a one singular moment of like, this is just too unjust. I
Yes.
can't, I can't just barrel through this anymore. And I, you know, like the most dramatic story related to that is in college. I was in an ed psych class, and there were two ed psych classes. I didn't know this when I came in on the first day.
Hmm.
And one was really where more of the business majors were in that class, because it was an optional election for, or elective for the
Oh,
business
okay.
majors. I don't understand why. And that was the one I was in. The other one was full when I tried to register. And so when I came in and I got there late trying to find the class, this building is
Hmm.
very confusing. And so the only spot left was like the second or third row right in the center. And I was like, oh
Oh
God, I
shit.
like to sit, I like an escape route.
Me
Like
too.
on the end of the aisle or at the back.
Don't be cornering me in the center of the room.
And so I'm like, oh, sit here. And this professor, you know, as he started talking, like it was very clear he was making jokes, like this is a blow off course. And I was really frustrated and I wanted to leave because I'm like, I clearly can't be in here. I need to learn this material because I'm an education major. And he's
Yeah.
basically framing it. And all the business majors are like laughing and like excited because they want an easy
A
class.
freebie class. Yeah.
But I'm like, well, we're just going to struggle through this, you know, hour and a half and then figure out what to do. And then at a certain point, a student came in. The door was at the back of the lecture hall, and a
Uh-huh.
student came in, and English was clearly not the student's first language. And so she was trying to communicate. She was lost in this confusing building trying to find her class.
Yeah.
And the professor made a joke, like in an ed psych class, like made a joke and was making fun of the student. And then the class
No.
just laughed. And I was like, the cognitive dissonance is too much. I have to leave immediately. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
shit. I have to leave immediately. I'm sitting here in the center of this room. I don't know what to do. And I was like, I'm not really trying to cause a scene. I just need to get out. And
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
I'm like, as unassumingly as possible, as quietly, like just trying to slide my things into my bag.
Yeah.
And, and as I'm doing this, the professor says, is something wrong? And I
Oh,
was like, and it hit the switch. And it was like,
yeah.
you know what? If you're going to ask me, yes, something is very wrong here.
Oh,
So I stood up and I said, yes, something's wrong. I said, I cannot sit in this class after what you did to that student. And this is an ed psych class. And you've been making a mockery of the topic. And honestly, this topic is important to me. I am an education major, while other people in this room may not be. And what you just did, I just can't. There's absolutely no way I can tolerate
damn.
that. And so I'm leaving. And then 3 other people stood up and packed up their things and walked out with me.
Oh,
And we went, I was terrified before I spoke this
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And we in the hallway, we were just like decompressing, like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
What the hell just
That
happened to you?
girl was still standing out there. These future educators all were like, let's help you
Thank
find
you.
your class. And we helped her to her class. And then we went straight to the dean's office and we're
Wow.
like, we need to talk to someone right now. This is not okay.
That is crazy. That is crazy. And I love that story. Um, it does a couple things for me. So mostly it tells me that anytime, so it, barrel through your fear, do it anyways, is what I'm trying to get at, right? Like you can be scared to death and still use your voice. You can't, like, you using your voice is so powerful. And for me, what I have discovered is the more that I started sharing my story and talking about these things that in a lot of cases I had a fuck ton of guilt and shame behind them. But the more I shared it with people and gave them an opportunity to respond to it, they were not only not ridiculing me or making me feel more guilty or, validating any of those feelings I was having. More often than not, they were impressed by what they had heard. They would tell me how strong and resilient I was. And it was almost like the more we just do it or say it, even if we are scared in the moment, it gives people an opportunity to be supportive and love on us when we need it. And your story shows you that a lot of times there's other people thinking the same damn thing and they need you to say it because their fear is taking over. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Oh,
Yes.
such a
I
good
think
story.
it's interesting, when you were saying that, I was reminded when I first realized the power of my story was I'm a sexual assault survivor. I was young, I was 19, and there was a lot of shame associated. I didn't talk about it, and I was
Mm-hmm.
still shunned and ridiculed by
Mm-hmm.
um, friends of this person that were, I thought, also my friends.
That's
And
terrible.
at some point, I started saying it sometimes in certain
Mm-hmm.
places. And I was always stunned at how, when I said it, how many people were like, oh yeah, you want to hear my story. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's powerful to remember that we are conditioned to hide certain things
Yep.
for a reason. And so
Yes.
sometimes it is important to not hide them. And the way we're conditioned is by that response. And so you will
Yep.
have people that will respond to you poorly, but that doesn't always mean it's not a good thing to do. And
Right.
it's funny too to think about like what's inspiring. Well, using my voice is one thing that really inspires people, but it's also one of the things that is the most irritating to people in my life too. Like, okay, can you stop using your voice for a second? and, and so that's a powerful reminder because so many times the things that are perceived as weaknesses, judged as something that we need to hide away are, even by ourselves, are
Yep.
also our our greatest strength. And that's an important thing to remember
Absolutely.
when you interact with other people and you notice things that are grating on you, is to like pause and be like, I'm being judging of this. Why am I being
Mhm.
judging of this? Because it's possible this is a really powerful strength for this kid if they're able to see it in that way.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and you hit on something that I think in this last year is really something that I've started embracing. And this was, I am historically, I have been one of the most judgmental people. And no one would necessarily know this, other than my close friends who, maybe I've shared some of these things, but mostly I was judgmental of myself. Right. And what I have started doing, and I'm getting better at, and I try to teach other people to do the same thing, is to just start recognizing where you have big responses and come at it from a place of curiosity and be like, that's interesting that this particular person is bothering me, or why am I so agitated by this situation? And the more that I can just get curious about it, that's where I'm like, oh, well, isn't this interesting? Because not everybody else is responding this way to this particular thing, but I am. And in a lot of cases, it's that person is mirroring to me something I don't like about myself. Or, it's very interesting what happens when you just start getting curious and drop the judgment.
This is one of the foundations of EMDR as a therapy modality, and why I am so passionate about it, because those big emotions and those big responses that we
Yep.
feel are 100% about this thing that's happening right now are not. The
Yep.
past is always in the present, and we're always responding to more than this situation, this external environment. We are also responding to our internal environment and the self judgments and the limiting beliefs and the emotions that are coming up. And we're also responding to the relational environment and the safety within the connection with this person or people that we're interacting with.
Yep. Now, I just recently learned about EMDR, so I'm going to assume there's people listening who maybe don't know what that is. Can you talk about that?
Sure. EMDR is a therapy modality. And what makes it different, I think an easy way to, because there's a lot to learn
I
about.
know. I've learned a little bit, and I'm like, oh wow, this is a loaded question I just asked.
Yeah, the basic training, your brain is like, what am I going to do with all this information? So, yeah, I think an easy way to explain it for people to kind of wrap their heads around is by talking about what's different about it from what is considered therapy in our culture. Like the
Yep.
king of, there's so many modalities of therapy I like to
Hmm.
always name. And the king of therapy modalities here in the United States is cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, Cognitive behavioral therapy is all about capturing thoughts, noticing what kinds of thoughts they are, evaluating the thoughts, retraining the thoughts, and all of that happens in your prefrontal cortex, your executive functioning. And the thing is, that's not where we store all of this stuff. We store it in our body, like literally
Yep.
in our body. It's amazing the things that I have seen and noticed about how our body responds to these things, and how connecting back to our bodies and having full ownership of our bodies and being able to listen and trust our bodies and do what our bodies
Yes.
are telling us to do is
Absolutely.
critical. And so it is an embodied therapy. It's not the only one. So it is the one that I love, but there are other therapies that can also help in the same way. Somatic experiencing is another really common one that you're hearing around. And there's
Hmm.
many more. Right? And so,
Yeah.
but what we do in EMDR is we move between the thoughts and the emotions and the body, and we process with our whole brain, which is why we use bilateral stimulation, which is commonly eye movements, back and forth, but not like hypnotism. It's not like
Mhm.
they're very brief. And we also use tapping on either sides of the body, or there's so many, even art. I've done my own EMDR processing by painting and blending colors from side to side. Walking is a bilateral, like movement can be bilateral. And so what happens when we have stimulus on both sides of our body, we're awakening the right brain and the left brain. And so like when we think about everything being in your thoughts and logic, that's very left brained. Our culture loves the left brain, and we
Yep.
definitely alienate our right brain a lot. And
A
the
lot.
right brain is where healing occurs. This is why we've been creative beings since the dawn of human history, and why there are paintings on cave walls, and why dancing and singing and movement and rhythm are parts of culture, because that's where we process, we heal, we make sense of these things that are happening to us, and we digest and metabolize our experiences and hold the parts that are nutritious and let go of the parts that don't serve us well.
Yeah.
That's my explanation.
Well,
I
that
never
has to
explain it the
be
same way.
no. Well, that's the prettiest explanation I've ever heard. So I love that. Okay, so let me get back to my questions here. What do you think is the most surprising challenge you faced on your journey, and how did you overcome it?
Um, like I can think of challenges and surprising.
Yeah.
Makes you want to kind of think about these challenges differently.
Yeah.
And I think the most surprising challenge for me, and the reason it was surprising, I want to lead with. It was surprising because before it started to show up, and a friend and mentor made me kind of aware that it was showing up, and was wise enough to even see part of where it was coming from. I didn't even know it was a challenge in my life as a whole.
Interesting. Okay.
And so it was the most surprising challenge was my sense of value and my ideas and beliefs around value. And the idea that I had to unlearn, um, is that I have to earn and or prove my value. Like,
Mhm.
we have value, full stop. We
Full
are
stop.
born, we are here, we
Yes.
are beings, we are sentient beings, even non-sentient beings have value. Like plants clearly have value.
You
Like,
just simply have value.
yeah, I don't decide that a plant has value based on anything. Even if it doesn't have value in the sense of use to me, it has value in the ecosystem and the way it impacts the ecosystem. We impact our ecosystem too. Like, we have value.
You have
Period.
value. Period. End of sentence.
We don't have to
Yes.
earn it. And it came up in my shift from working in the school system. So like briefly, I was a teacher. After 3
Did I
years,
know this about you? I don't
I don't
think I knew
know,
that you
maybe
were a
not.
teacher.
Yeah, no, I was a teacher. After 3 years, I was like, I was so disillusioned by so many things. And I was like, I can't do this. I need something else. I decided to chase another dream that I had in my head of working in publishing. I got into a master's program in publishing. I moved to New York. I tried to do that whole thing, but got redirected back to education, but could see there were different opportunities within education. And I came back to Texas, and I was exploring different opportunities in education. I wound up going into school counseling, and then from school counseling, I went into private practice therapy. And so in this shift from leaving education, which, my God, that's the biggest start again moment in my life, because there was so much that I had to challenge and unlearn and let go of with regards to what security means and what is actually secure and what isn't, and
Yes.
what
Yes.
what obligation really is and what I actually have as an obligation and what I don't, and all of
Correct.
these things. And so when I left the school system and I went into private practice, you know, one of the things I had to decide first is like, what is my rate of service going to be? And I also had a lot of self-doubt around like, am I really qualified to do this? My experience has been in school, and, you know, in determining what I have to sit here and literally assign a monetary value to my time. And I
Yes. Yes, you
did
do.
not know how much I was trained and conditioned to devalue my time. And, you know, the school system does that to everybody, and even the kids. It's with grades
Absolutely.
for them, right? Their value is on this external thing. And
Yes.
they internalize that very quickly, and
Yes.
test scores and all these things that have nothing to do with their value. Um, and
Oh my
even though
gosh, do
I
not
would,
get me started on these tests.
well, and I'll tell you, I would tell my students that. What was also surprising is I would tell my students that all the time. Like I would close my door the day before the tests, the state tests, you know, and I'd be like, look, I know you're all feeling some things. Let's talk about what you're feeling. And here I want you to know right now, I couldn't care any less than I care about how you perform on this test. How you perform on this test says zero things about how much you've learned. Honest to God, I could talk about that for hours with evidence. It
With
doesn't.
evidence.
It doesn't say a single thing about how good you are, how valuable you are, how lazy or not lazy you are. Like lazy isn't a thing. I could also talk about that for hours, but it doesn't say anything about you. It's something we
Yes.
have to do. It's a marker. It's a tool we can use. I look at the test as more for me, because if I see that these areas are areas where you haven't learned, which PS, the test doesn't actually communicate that to teachers,
Yes. Yes.
then I can decide where I need to do more to help you learn that. It's my job to help you learn that. Like
Yes.
your value is not based on anything.
Yes.
You
I think,
matter. But
and
I didn't believe that about myself. Like I was
no,
telling
of
my
course
kids that
not,
every
because
day.
you were through the same system.
Right. And you're always like, you're not supposed to be in it for the money when you're stressed, because like I literally was living paycheck to paycheck, couldn't even afford to own a home in the community that I serve every day. Right. Like,
Yeah, because we pay our teachers shit. Um, it's
yeah.
we are not kind to the teachers in this society, but I've had very few who kind of convey that sentiment about those standardized tests through the years, but we have had a few. And so I just try to do my part as the parent to send that message. But I have been super fortunate. I have very smart children, and they just are good test takers. There's no innate anxiety about taking a test. They just
That's
go
what the
in,
test
they
tests.
do
That's
what?
it. That's all the test tests, is how good at you are taking tests.
Correct. And so they could go in blind and do just fine. And not all kids are like that. There's a lot of anxiety around these tests, but my kids who do test well get so much anxiety about these particular tests that I'm like, this is bullshit, first of all.
Yes.
And so my daughter, it was so funny. So my fourth child, and I was like, God, she's really getting wigged out by this test. And so I'm, coaching her and encouraging her and telling her, just go in, do your best. It means nothing. And finally I said, sweetie, why are you so stressed about this particular test? And she says, well, what if I fail? And I said, who cares? First of all, you're not going to fail. But if you do, I don't care. Just go take the test, start to finish, and be done. And then you go on to other things. It wasn't until she had taken the test, she came home that first day, that I realized it was the first time she was taking this test. She's third grade, so she's just now taking it for the first time. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that's a big miss, Mom. And my older daughter was like, way to pay attention, Mom. You didn't even know this was the first year.
There are so many reasons why there's a big disconnect between what parents understand is happening in schools and what actually is happening in schools.
But
And
mostly it was just like, I've been doing this coaching for many, many years now. Like I totally missed that this was her entry into the testing experience. And I was like, oh, my bad. Now I understand. And I'm so sorry.
yeah.
Oopsie. Anyways,
Yeah. But yeah, so how did I overcome it? I worked with my own therapist a lot around this issue, and I learned it was an issue. I was like, oh my
yes.
God, let's talk about this.
Well, I think awareness is the hardest part, right? Because like you were mentioning earlier, there's only so much of how we are interacting with other human beings that is this conscious part of our brain. There's so much more that is just behind the scenes, subconscious, that we
So,
don't even know is a thing. We don't even realize that we're walking around believing this thing
right.
until someone kind of shines a light on it, which is why therapists are so helpful, because they can be like, isn't this interesting? Let's shine a little light on this thing that you're doing that you don't even notice you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's so helpful. But the awareness piece, I think, is the biggest part. And then once you know about it, then you can create a plan and do something about changing it. But what advice would you give to the younger you?
Oh,
This is my
yeah.
favorite question that I ask, by the way.
I have some. So it's funny because this week, I I was scrolling through TikTok. That's how this happened. And
Always the social media.
oh, the love hate with the TikTok. But it was some random video, but the sound was the Billy Joel song, Vienna. Do you know the
I
Billy
don't
Joel
know
song?
it, but
Oh, go listen to it. It's so good.
I have
But
a friend who would be mortified because she loves Billy Joel so much. And I'm always like, I don't know this song. She's like, what is wrong with you?
right. Well, and I love music and I love singing.
Yes.
I sing with Chorus Austin. Shout out to Chorus Austin. If you live in Austin, you should really come check us out. We are awesome.
I need to come here, you guys. I have not ever been.
You can find us on our own program, and also the Austin Symphony Orchestra hires us when they need a choir often. So you can check us out. But I love music, and this came, I was like, oh God, that's such a great song. I haven't listened to that song in forever. I grew up on Billy Joel. And so like, I've been kind of playing it on repeat. And as I've been listening to it, my thought was like, oh my God, I would like to retitle this song A Letter to My Younger Self.
Oh.
And so like, there are some parts that just really stood out to me that I could hear like, oh yeah, my young self needed to know that so much. And so what are they? One part is, slow down. You're doing fine.
Yes. Why
You
are we in
can't,
such a hurry?
you can't be everything you want to be before your time. And like, that's so powerful because I always had plans and timelines and I had to accomplish this by this or this meant, and like, no, that's not how it works. And like the chorus is, Vienna waits for you. Like, where you're going is there. You're going to arrive. You don't have to try to orchestrate it or control it. You just have to follow. And
Yes.
there's oh gosh, another part of that song is, how does it go? It's like,
I'm going to have to go listen to this song now.
yeah, it's, you can see when you're wrong, but you can't always see when you're right.
Oh.
And like, that hit me like, how did I never notice these lyrics in this song before? Like, like, because yeah, I would get so focused in my younger years on all my mistakes and what they said about me and how these failures were like things I needed to correct. And I was missing things that I could celebrate, victories where I was doing things exactly right. And there's another layer of like, sometimes the thing that I'm doing wrong was actually not wrong for me.
Correct.
And I missed it. It was the right thing for me. And I missed it. And I course corrected to do it the right way. And it was further wrong for me because who it was right for is the world, society, certain people you have relationships with. Like, And so that hit me. And then the other part that really hits me is where it says, dream on, but don't imagine they'll all come true. Because I would
Oh,
get
that one
so,
gave me chills, by the way.
yeah, I would get so stuck on like, there's so many things I feel passionate and excited about. I am a multi-passionate, very creative person. And it was like, if I start something, I have to finish it. And we don't. It's perfectly okay to put something down in the middle. And
Oh
so
my
like,
gosh.
I
Yes.
have to see it all the way through. And if I can't imagine how I can see it all the way through, then like, what's the point in starting? And, I had to learn from one of my mentors. Like he said, I would hate for you to miss an opportunity because you decided like they already didn't like want you, when I was talking about like a particular job posting and I didn't meet the
Oh,
qualifications. And he's like, so what?
so what?
Sometimes people meet you and they don't care. They see the potential in you for those calls. Like
Oh
if
my
it's
gosh. That's
something
probably
where,
the top recommendation I give on when it's career guidance is apply for the job anyways. Who cares if you don't meet every single requirement? Like a lot of time, because I've been on the other side of interviewing so many times that I know it's your wish list. And there are plenty of people who are not going to hit all of those requirements. And there are so many people who never even put their name in the hat because there was one bullet point that they didn't do. And I will say most of the time, when it comes to young people entering the workforce, I see this a lot where they say, I don't have enough experience. And I'm like, that's a bullshit story you're telling yourself because you have a lot of experience. You just don't have logged paid experience,
right.
but you have the experience.
That's something else I learned from that mentor too. When I had all the self-doubt of like my education experience, how am I going to do
Yeah.
private practice? And he was like,
Yeah.
your education experience qualifies you more than you realize, in some
Correct.
ways more than practitioners without it.
Yes.
And now that I'm like in it, I see how, yeah, oh my gosh, the places I'm like pulling from and the parts of
Oh,
myself that I've developed are always valuable in a multitude of different spheres in different ways.
oh,
So
for
yeah.
sure.
And like the piece of advice that just comes from me, not a song. It's not in a song, but you like, it's always okay to use your voice. You never have to silence your voice. You can choose to silence your voice.
Amen.
Yeah, you can choose to silence your voice. In some situations, silencing your voice is the path to survival.
Sure.
In other situations, using your voice is the path to survival. And
Yeah.
only you know which one it is. And you don't have to let the pressure from the outside tell you which one it is.
Yeah.
Use your voice.
Mm-hmm. It's so empowering. And for me, it's been a very freeing experience. The more I use my voice, the more free I feel to do and say other things that follow, right? Which is I didn't even plan to do that, but that's an excellent segue to my next question. So where are you going from here? What's next for you?
Vienna. I don't I don't know. I have lots of places. I have lots of dreams. I have lots of places you know, that are paths. I don't know which ones will materialize or when. I'm thinking about like glass blowing. Like, I'm blowing a bunch of glass. I don't know which pieces will break and I don't know which ones will become masterpieces and I don't know which ones are going to be the ones that are like the funky ones on my way to
Yes.
learning how to make masterpieces, but
Yes.
I'm creative and I love a lot of things and I have a lot of things started that are not in progress. Like I
Yes.
have, if you're on my website, you can see it's like sign up for a blog coming soon. I don't know when soon is. I but I have a lot to say. I have a lot of started pieces and things I want to flesh out and I think
Yeah.
that they're powerful and important. So I see that somehow in my future.
Yes. Well,
Doing
I
EMDR.
see a book in your future.
Ooh, maybe so. Doing EMDR is a lot of, when we do resourcing in EMDR, it's like it's very similar to some guided meditation, but so
Mhm.
much more. And so, I love doing that part of my work. And I've thought like, ooh, I want to record some meditations. I've
Oh, me
thought
too.
of,
Actually, that's on my list.
I've thought of having my own podcast. I like to do visual journeying and I use poetry as a means of healing. And so I've thought about creating journals to help guide people in a self-paced way through this process, especially since
I
my
love
son has the
I
need.
love all of these things for you, by the way. I love all
Yeah.
of them.
So
Why
like
don't you
they're
just
all
do them
they're
all?
all open. Who knows? Creative classes. I'd like to do classes and workshops.
You've mentioned a couple times being a creative being, and earlier you said we are all creative beings, which is so like innately wise. So many people don't think of themselves as creative, and it's just this misconception. Like, it's just a lie. We're all creative. It's just that creative is such a wide range. It can be so many different things that the way you do it might be different than another person.
I think this is tied to, again, that idea of value and having to put an actual number on the value.
Yep.
And like it has to be something award worthy or whatever. And this really kind of blew my mind a while back. I think I heard someone speaking on a clip, or maybe it was a meme, who knows, but they said, the funny thing about creation is like, if someone's like, what are you into? And you're like, oh, I'm into painting. They're like, oh, are you any good at it? And then on the other hand, if you're like, what are you into? And you're like, oh, I'm really into walking. Like, I love going for walks, I love hiking, way into hiking. We don't go, are you any good at it? And creating is just as fundamental a human function as walking. Like,
Yes.
we're not supposed to be good at it. There's so much more to the creative process than that. And it
Hmm.
is a way to move into a play state. And, talking about play therapy,
Hmm.
things I say on my website are true about play therapy. And there's so much more. Like, play is a nervous system state, it's not a list of activities.
Yes.
And so creative expression is a playful nervous system state. It's regulating, it's safe. This is where we can find moments of presence, peace, and calm. And that is what it's for. It's
Right.
to just create, to just have fun, to
Yes.
just enjoy something. You're not supposed to be good at everything.
My 9-year-old is it's so funny. My children, they all teach me different things, but she will come into a room and she's just talking and having just by herself, all by herself. And I'll be like, what are you doing in here? And she goes, using my imagination. And I'm like, okay, I love that. Carry on. It's so good. You mentioned something earlier. I was like, where did that thought go? And it came back. This idea of having to finish things that you start. Um, I don't have this in me. And it made me curious. Do you know what your human design is?
No.
Okay, we'll have to look this up because I'm very curious. But you said multi-passionate, and I am a manifesting generator, which that type is all about doing all the many things. So it made me curious if maybe you were too.
Maybe I
Um,
do.
but in that, I innately have this sense of it's okay not to finish it. Like I didn't carry that. But my sister told me one time, many, many years ago, that she couldn't not finish a book she started reading. And I was like, what?
Oh no.
She's
I put
I
down.
was like, what do you mean? She's like, I will suffer through an entire book that I am not enjoying just because I have to finish it. And I'm like, well, let me just give you permission right now to not finish that horrible book you're reading. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? I put down projects and books all the time. Like sometimes not finishing it is the best part.
Sometimes not putting something down and I'm not necessarily talking about books, I'm talking about other things, or it's self-abandonment, And when I think about it in relationships, do you know how many relationships I stayed in too long because
Oh my God, yes.
I have to see it through?
Yeah.
And it was like, no, I don't. Why do I think I have to see it through just because it began? If this person is
Just because it began.
not
Yep.
treating me how I deserve or interested in participating in my journey,
Yes.
why do I have to continue to be like a side character
You
in your journey?
don't.
Like,
Nope.
so
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. I wasn't even relating it to relationships, but which is weird for the 3 times divorced person to not have made that connection. But here we are.
I
Okay,
the
so
reason I'm not 3 times divorced is because I stopped before I got there.
oh no, I had no problem getting married. I am a hopeless romantic. Okay, so my last question is, I will obviously include all links and things in the show notes, but how can people find you?
At the moment, my website, which is just my name, it's www.maryhoofnagle.com. I do have social media accounts that I just haven't had time to develop content for. And that was a big thing. Well, it was a big thing I wanted to do, and I shifted from a group practice to an independent practice. And I thought, oh, great, because I'll have all this time as I'm, adjusting and having to build up a caseload. But I got to tell you, I have
not an abundance of time on your hands.
No, there's just so much need. And so
oh my gosh, right now, yes.
Caseload. And so I'm focused on my clients. And that's good for me right now.
Yeah.
But someday there will be some social media content. So you can follow if you like on Instagram and on Facebook. And those links are actually on my website. So you can follow.
Perfect. Well, I will definitely put those down in the show notes. This was such a lovely conversation. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always so much fun to chat with you.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Okay, listen. Are you struggling to find what your true purpose really is? You should try journaling. At the very least, it will get you to a better feeling place than where you are right now. I've created a set of journal prompts to get you on your way to discovering who you truly are and where you want to go from here. My free download is called Journal Yourself to Joy, and it's available at shaunalee.com under Free Stuff. These are my tried and true journal prompts that will raise your energy, increase your positivity, and brighten your day. Download yours today.